Hello, so I'll give everybody a minute to get in. Once we've got a decent amount of people in, I'm just going to explain something quite important to everybody in the stream. Hopefully it won't affect many of you, but it's worth mentioning to everybody. And hopefully today there shouldn't be loads of fan noise that you can hear, because the only fan going at the moment is my computer fans. I don't need the air, well, I don't have aircon unfortunately. I don't need the evaporative cooler on or the actual fan on, because we've had loads of sort of storms now, so the weather outside's cooled down massively and it's actually really pleasant. No worries. A video I've made that's not live yet is one about how to make your own filter at home. I managed to make a homemade one that actually worked. Read the description, it says in there. How many people have we got watching? 27. Right, what I'll just mention to everybody now is it's in the rules at the side, but I've had to sort of, unfortunately, had to ban somebody who'd been a patron for quite a long time on my Patreon Discord. Don't do anything obviously illegal. That should make a lot of sense. But yeah, sadly I had somebody post something illegal on there, removed it and gave them a warning. They got very upset about, you know, me doing that, even though they were breaking the law. And then unfortunately had to be banned because they didn't want to not do it again. So that was a real shame having to do that, but like I said, just for the sake of everybody, don't mess about with doing illegal stuff in the comments or whatever else, because I'm sure this should be obvious to people, but if you do something illegal on the internet, it can be totally traced back to you, and you've pretty much just done an admission of guilt of doing it. No, for his safety I wouldn't want to say, because if I said what it was, I'm sure people would say I should have definitely reported him to the police for it, and I don't want to, you know, do that to people, especially if they don't really realise the consequences. It's something that I would personally say shouldn't be illegal, but it is under British law. But, you know, just don't do anything that's outright illegal. That's the thing, you know. With lots of laws, we may disagree with them, but that doesn't mean that, you know, you're allowed to break them. Yeah, I've said to people though, I think it says in the description, and I have said to people on my Patreon Discord channel that I might potentially close it if, you know, lots of people do keep doing stupid shit in there. Most of the time it's just people making slightly offensive jokes, which isn't really a problem, but I think the problem is lots of people don't realise that because the UK's got such strict laws on certain things, you know, you can't really allow people to do certain things. It's kind of like saying I don't like paying taxes, so because I think taxation is theft, I'm not going to pay taxes. Then, you know, those people who go to prison over it, not realising that, you know, if you disagree with something, you need to try and change it legally, not just break the law. Slightly offensive, yeah. I mean, that's down to interpretation, isn't it? Anyway, so glad that's out the way with, so now we can get on with a proper stream. Yeah, alright Vlad. Like I said, I like my Romanian car, so I have no faults with my Dacia. Hello to everybody. So yeah, as I was saying, it's really nice in the UK at the moment because we've had loads of storms where I am, so the temperature's gone from being well over 30 degrees and really dry to being a bit more humid, but being about 20 degrees, so it's the sort of weather I like. Which is, you know, quite nice. If you said you've changed your name, I probably won't remember you. Because I get loads and loads of comments every day, so it's really hard to, you know, although I try and reply to as many comments as possible, it's hard to remember every single person who comments. No, it's only Patreon only, and it's hard enough to manage just with, you know, a few people who support me being in there. No, I find the SHMS easy to put on, or Shimps, however it's pronounced. Most of my Soviet masks are fine. It's only the GP7 and PMK that I find difficult to put on because of the stupid strap system. Alright, cheers. You're in Australia though, aren't you, Christopher? I can imagine. But I imagine you're quite acclimatised to the heat though, aren't you? Because if you live in a country that's hot most of the time, you're used to it. Where the problem is with the UK, we can have fairly cold winters and fairly hot summers. It's not obviously as extreme as being in, like, you know, a really Nordic country or something, or Canada in the winter, and it's not as extreme as being somewhere like Australia in the summer, but because you can go from something like -10 in the winter to, you know, almost 40 degrees in the summer, that's when it's kind of a big sort of, you know, difference. That's the thing, so I think a lot of people don't know what acclimatisation is. You know, because obviously when you're in a country and you're used to the temperature, you're fine with it. But when you get a big sort of shift in temperature, especially when it happens recently, you know, that's when it becomes really difficult to deal with. Because I'm personally somebody who likes the cold a lot more. I could put up with temperatures that go even colder than the UK. Because, you know, the way I feel is like when it's cold, you can just put extra layers on, and if you're being active, you're not going to get too cold. Whereas when it's really hot, there's nothing you can do when it gets past a certain temperature. The Howell gas masks are actually like half-face respirators, and then they wear goggles. So yeah, that would work fine. Because the logic doesn't exist. The fire with the air rifles, as soon as they're over 12 foot-pounds, they're considered a Section 1 firearm, the same as like any bolt-action rifle or whatever else. But crossbows and bows have no limit to the power according to the law. Now, Falklands is fairly close to the south, like the Antarctic, isn't it? Because it's right down there. The ones I've used, Jason, which I quite liked, they were Dunlop boots. They did them in brown and black. I have a pair in both. And they're kind of rubberized boots, but they had a steel toe cap in and fairly good ankle support. And you could get them at Sports Direct for like £20 for the pair. So they were quite cheap, but because they had the rubber surface, you could actually wipe them with like damp kitchen roll to clean them. You didn't need to ever use shoe polish on them. Probably not gristle, it's mostly just because they're so old. Most of them are cracked and useless by this point as well. The US had the M17 series of gas masks in Vietnam and the XM28, and the Viet Cong and sort of NVA had Chinese M65 masks, I think, and like other homemade masks. Yeah, so you're pretty much at the same Vrantix, if I'm pronouncing that right. You're pretty much at the same temperature I'm at now. I think my room's about 24 degrees, but that's just because the computer's on in my room has crap ventilation. But we've got a house that's been designed to obviously keep the heat in very well in, you know, the winter. So that's the problem in the summer, is the ventilation is awful. You can open all the windows and you still don't get very good airflow in the house. The 3M 7500 and the 3M, is it the 6000? One's the silicone half-face mask, one's the one that's not silicone. They shouldn't be too much, especially if you buy one that's out of its official date range. Then you can just put brand new particulate-free filters on, and then they'd be very good for that. I use a 3M 7500 when volunteering, with P3 filters on it. Is that the Gas Mask Collectors community? I'm pretty sure I'm technically on it. I'm not on any Patreon stuff, not Patreon, Discord sort of stuff with it. But I'm fairly sure I'm on the Facebook page, but a lot of the time I rarely look at it. I rarely look at anything of Facebook. The only thing I use Facebook for really is Messenger, to talk to my friends. Because most of the time I just don't give a shit about Facebook, to be honest. I don't think I've updated my profile picture in over a year on Facebook. And I know on a lot of those sort of gas mask collecting things, it's always people just talking about GP5s, and that kind of just bores me. It's not an awful drinking tube on the 4A1, but the issue is trying to get the bottles for them, because the bottles are rarer. The Polish bottles for the MP4B gas mask actually fit the 4A1 and work with it. Yeah, I have no idea what 80 Fahrenheit is, because we work in Celsius here. I'm not going into reenacting at all. Sounds really stupid, Archie. Is this some, like, stupid, like, sexist ruling or something like that? But, yeah, I don't think that we were allowed shorts at all at my school, so it wouldn't have mattered at all. But when I was at school, we never had any really hot summers. There might have been one or two, but, you know, not hot like we've been having recently. Atropine, as far as I'm aware, atropine, which is a nerve agent thing, it binds to, it's something to do with it binds to your nerves to stop the thing. It's how nerve agent basically works, in layman's term, because I'm not a scientist, is that nerve agent stops your nerves from communicating because some sort of communicating thing in your bloodstream or whatever it is gets coated by the agent, and it stops it, you know, it forces it into one position rather than like on-off positions like nerves are meant to do. So as far as I'm aware, atropine basically coats it to stop that happening. But atropine is kind of like an emergency used thing. You can't like basically give soldiers no gas masks and NBC suits and just inject them with atropine and expect them to be fine. It's kind of like a life-saving thing if you've been exposed to nerve agent. The MP4B has the best drinking tube on any of the masks I actually own, weirdly. Even though it's a stopgap one, it's better than the MP5's drinking tube that came after it. Because it screws on at both ends, which means that you don't actually have to hold anything in place to get the drinking tube to work. Because I really hate on masks having to hold the canteen upside down while sometimes pressing other bits. I don't know what I'd really tell you about gas masks in school unless they're covering World War One. I suppose extreme cold weather could hurt a mask. I'm trying to say Czech and I can't say Czech. Czech nationalist. But I don't think it really would unless you went to really extremes. Like, you'd probably have to be under -20 or 30 for the mask to start being damaged, just as most can cope with pretty hot weather fine. The thing to remember with most masks is they're designed to, you know, withstand horrible conditions because they're gas masks or respirators. So, you know, they have to deal with acid gas and, like, not nerve agents, sorry, blister agents. So if a mask wasn't able to withstand that, it wouldn't be a very good mask. So generally, like, coping with being damp or cold, they can manage it fine. When he probably said GPO, he probably meant GP and then a number. Yeah, alright. I've just been telling everybody it's been nice because the weather's finally cooled down where I am. I imagine it will heat back up again, but it's nice to get a bit of relief where, you know, because like I said, I'm much more somebody who can put up with very cold temperatures, but I don't like the heat at all. Well, I assume you'd need to clean the dust out Courier, so you don't inhale the dust when you put it on, but ideally new filters would be best. I mean, if you don't know what the mask is, that's also a bit of a problem, because really old half-face masks can have asbestos filters as well. The Mark V is a full rubber mask. The Mark IV is rubber coated in stockinette. So the Mark IVs actually have lasted better if you see second-hand ones, because the Mark IV, despite being the earlier masks, basically higher production value. So you've got both rubber and, like, you know, coated rubber rather than it just being rubber, so that it gets dry rot less often. If they've got XM in the name, they're prototypes. Let me just search XM44 so I know which one you're on about. Yeah, that's a prototype one. That's the one, though, wasn't it, that came out in the 60s or something, and it was really similar to the S10. So it would have been a really good mask. Yeah, 1968. So it would have been an amazing mask if it was actually produced at that point for soldiers, but they didn't do it. Alright. Yeah, slight drizzle is fine, I just hate it when it's raining so heavily you can't go out and do anything and everything's really muddy. Well, there's not really rare variants to GP5 unless you mean just SHM masks, and then that's probably the original SHM or SHM1, the one that came out at the end of World War II. I've heard some people say like styrofoam and polystyrene can damage a mask if it's left on it for too long. Supposedly like glass mannequin heads are the best ones. What you used to get in some masks is either plastic or cardboard inserts that are designed to go in when not in use, so the mask keeps its shape. No, there'll never be a time when Brits aren't moaning about the weather, because as far as I'm aware, you can moan about the weather and it isn't a hate crime, so you can't be in prison for it. Yeah, I did a thing on mouth breathing with a filter. It sort of works. Obviously, wearing a mask with a filter is much better. But yeah, if you're in a fire, it's better to use a gas mask than nothing. But obviously, don't endanger yourself. Just use it to evacuate, because you'd actually need a supplied air respirator to be able to, you know, be completely safe in a fire. Because some things will bypass the filter, and if there's no oxygen to breathe, you'd still suffocate. Yep. GP7s and PMKs normally have that like plastic mesh insert thing. No, probably not, because they consider them too expensive to make. Because I've got two C7 masks, which are pretty rare, and those are the ones where they made a mask, realised it was too expensive in the 1950s, and then they recalled the masks and destroyed them, so it was only people who didn't send them back that when the masks still exist. If it's a 4A1, that's a good mask. The lenses are a bit weak on the 4A1, but other than that, it's a very good mask. So we were saying on Weapon Collector's stream earlier that there was a shootout with the police yesterday or the day before in London, because, you know, criminals can't have guns except when they do. Just tell them to fuck off, Archie. These are the sort of people that wouldn't have a problem though if you had a stamp collection. With this summer, with it being so hot and arid, MTP camouflage, because it actually is kind of great when all the grass is dead and yellow. But otherwise, if I had full, actually I say Flecktarn's better in the autumn, when it's a bit more orangey and yellow. Maybe Woodland DPM. Yeah, as I've said before, I do not like the GP7 and PMK. They couldn't legally have the gun anyway, so... I like Tiger Stripe, but there's a couple of variants, aren't there, of it? But, the weird thing is, although the Americans wore it officially, I think it was a South Vietnamese camouflage pattern. Yeah, the only thing that could be better on the lag masks is the straps. I hate those old-fashioned straps. Yeah, you see, this is the classic thing where you have a crime committed with an illegal gun, but, you know, everybody who has guns legally would be blamed for it. Yeah, I do find that funny when you go to another country, sometimes ones that are renowned to have, like, violent police or, you know, that stuff like that, and then they're actually a lot better than British cops. So they haven't come up to you then, Callum, and said, you said something naughty on the internet, you're going to the clink. What have you got wrong with you then, Firewolf? Oh, if I didn't say, I'll be streaming for about an hour, so I've done about 20 minutes so far, so, I'll be streaming for another 40 minutes. I think they had discussed that at one point now, that Ruger 1022 shouldn't be allowed. Do you mean the Canadian C4? Because the Canadian C7 would just be the same as the British C7, wouldn't it? Which didn't have dome-shaped eyes, it had flat eyepieces. But if you mean like the C4's bulgy bug eyes, there aren't many. I think one or two of the American prototype masks might have had that. But as far as I'm aware, there's not really been any, there's not many masks. The C4 is one of literally the few I can think of that had those like bug eyes. Well, what you actually need in reality is laws that allow private ownership and sort of self-defense laws that are sensible. And then when people do bad things, they get very extreme punishments, rather than having a situation where if you go around committing horrible crimes, you barely get any time in prison, and the police are more interested in going after people who might say offensive things online. Were they giving out donuts at the tram? You can't really make a Soviet mask at home, unless you've got all the rubber making materials. When I was in Poland, actually, there was a bit where we stopped at a motorway, like, services thing. You know, there was like a restaurant and motorway services, and there were like 30 police just sat in the doorway all eating their lunch. I mean, in a civilised country, you should have a stand your ground law, shouldn't you? Where if somebody threatens you or whatever else, you have the right to defend yourself. But even in some US states now, I think they're sort of getting worse in terms of, oh no, you should have a duty to retreat first. Yeah, all of the Soviet masks, pretty much until the late ones, have the same voice diaphragm. The MM1, the GP5M, the SHMS... they're all the same voice diaphragm. Is Victoria the same place where you're not allowed body armour as well, because it's considered a weapon? With a 3D printer you could make something to hang the mask on, sure. Totally depends where it is, Retrowave, I think. I really like my Swiss SM67, but sadly Swiss masks are really expensive in the UK. Oh, saying about bug-eyed masks, I think the Swiss SM90 has quite bug-eyed things. That's the one though that's on the cover of Stalker Call of Pripyat. I did see a thing when at one point there was a load of pollution in Moscow, loads and loads of people had Soviet Cold War masks on. With the asbestos filters, of course, because why not? So they're actually banning stuff that stops you protecting yourself. Yeah, have you actually seen Halloween 3, Techman? Yeah, but you can normally get it on Steam sale really cheaply, Courier. Normally, whenever there's a Steam sale on, you can buy like the Stalker trilogy for less than like $10 or pounds. Yeah, that's not too bad. Mine was the SM67's full kit for £30. But they're the only two you really see in the UK, and I don't really want to get the 74 one. It's just an upgraded version of the one I've got, and they're both very similar. Call of Pripyat, in my opinion, is the best one of the lot, because Call of Pripyat is the one where everything kind of works without mods. Whereas everybody really likes Shadow of Chernobyl, but it's still very ropey unless you play it with mods. You know, it's probably not worth doing without mods, to be honest. And chiggy breaky of Danka. There you go. If anybody's wondering what the clicking noise is, it's because I've got a flick knife out again. I'm don't know if you'd actually call it a flick knife, but you know, the unfolding knives, and it becomes a bit addicting to do it if you're sort of just got them in your hand. Generally, it sounds loud and metallic if you've not got... It's like when you're using them with a coffee can filter. Basically, because there's more air resistance by the big filter, less air flows into the mask, and the voice diaphragm isn't as loud. But I think if you use them without the filter, or like a very small filter, there's extra pressure, which is when they make the weird like groaning noises, if that's what you mean. I mean, it can sometimes be down to the individual voice diaphragm, but generally, the Soviet voice diaphragms, if you're not using a filter or use a very small filter, they get far louder and weirder sounding, because it's to do with like the amount of airflow going through the mask. Yeah, I've not got my zipper on my desk, so I can't flick it. No, I've never had a Play-Doh gas mask. So my my Serbian M1 or Yugoslavian M1 has never melted, thankfully, but I know a lot of people's have, so there was definitely at least one big batch of them made with some very weird sensitive rubber. Yeah, 60 to 40mm converter's worth getting, and as I said, Mike, because that homemade filter of mine worked, you could definitely make filters yourself if you wanted to that would work, for not too much money. I'll tell everybody what day that video goes up on, because I think a lot of people would be very interested in that. But I did a really half-assed attempt to make a homemade filter and it worked. August the 5th, so is that next Sunday? Yeah, August the 5th at 5 PM. I got a big plastic bottle used for multivitamins that I finished. I drilled a load of holes in the bottom of it, put a filter pad in, filled it with that cheap charcoal I had, put another pad on top, rigged it up with duct tape to attach to a hose, and it worked. I wish I could buy a Yugoslavian Mauser. Any idea what the camouflage pattern was? Never heard of that game, Tech Man. Let me check what my weather report is. Oh, is it so like Woodland DPM? I'm just wondering what's going on with the weather at the moment, with, you know, windows being open and closed, because I think we're expected a load more rain, although there was like rain non-stop from sometime in the early morning to like 1 o'clock or something. 6 PM and 7 PM are meant to have very heavy rain. 10 PM's got some rain. Cool. The flak arm vest, is that like a Kevlar one? Like a flak jacket vest, or is it just like a regular kind of vest? Which one? The Brody helmet, like the Mark 1 or Mark 2 Brody helmet, or the Mark 3 Tortoise helmet? No, I won't get that card for about 2 weeks, because they've had apparently such a massive surge in people joining UKIP. You won't get your party cards for quite a while, because they've just been overwhelmed by the support. And that's just literally because Theresa May fucked everybody the other week. With the Brexit thing, they've just had loads of people now quitting the Tory party, signing up for UKIP. I was never a party member of any party before this, but I've just got fed up, and I also want a party card, because that might make it a bit harder for them to arrest you for saying like the slightest thing, if it then comes across more as, you know, political prisoners type thing. Yeah, US Woodland and British 95 DPM are both exceptionally good as regular Woodland camouflages. If I had the option to change something on them though, it would just be on both of them to replace the black on them for like a very dark brown or dark green, just because I think they'd work better. Hello, hello, hello. Hello? Everybody's saying hello all of a sudden. I've got the Serbian M2, but it's a really small one. I need to get one in a medium size. But I really like that because it's, yeah, like an M9 in 40mm. Now, I've already said why I don't like the idea of Escape from Tarkov because of all the microtransactions they put in it, where they did all those, like, bonuses. If you pay more and more money, you get more and more stuff at the game, so I hate developers like that. I hope you enjoy them, Equinox. Now, I've only briefly played Metal Gear Solid 3, so at some point I ought to try and play it properly. Because if I'm going to get a ghillie suit, I want to make my own. You can just use a scrim net with regular camouflage and you'd work really well. Alright, okay. Well, Christopher, the easy way is, if it's like a flat one with the brim all the way round and like the little bit for your head, that's either a Mark 1 or a Mark 2. The Mark 3 helmet's one that looks more like a tortoise shell, where it's kind of, you know, more bowl shaped. No, I don't have any Austrian P-dot camo. I don't have any Australian camo either. If you look on my videos, there'll be videos on all the camo patterns I have. Yeah, that would work. Especially if it's one that's like dark green or something, rather than being just, you know, like a black mesh. It depends. I really like the Flecton scrim nets, but I found lots of those are very expensive on eBay, so I've not bothered buying any. But you can buy like two-tone woodland ones, which are like very dark green and a mid-green. That's what I've got in my Commando helmet now. I've just got a standard olive green scrim net in my Mark 7 helmet, but that's also got the Hessian type stuff sewn into it as well. Nah, I wouldn't be interested in that either, Grishel, sure. Cool. No, Richard, I very rarely watch Yugoslavia stuff, and I don't think he's a bad channel or anything. I quite like some of his videos, it's just not one I regularly remember to look at. It depends. If it's a plate carrier that's got like the Kevlar panels all around it, then it will offer some protection, yeah. Because the Kevlar will do that. Because some of them are like Kevlar all around, then you have the plate to work against rifle rounds. On the vital organs, but if it's one which doesn't have that and it's just literally 4 plates, then no, it won't offer any protection unless you have something in it. If it's the flat brim one, that would be the Mark 1 or 2 helmet. You won't be able to post a link, Berserk Jason, because it just won't let you do it. Only I can post links or mods. That's how YouTube does the rules on this. No, if I had an M50, I'd done videos on it. And you mean the Avon M50? Nah, that's fine. I'm not accepting anything sent to me anyway, sophistry, just because I'm a bit paranoid about people sending me stuff. Because, like, what Weapon Collector said, he had something sent to him which was illegal to be sent. I know your stuff isn't, but there's, like, risks of that where somebody can send something and then Customs can find it. And UK Customs manages to lose lots of my parcels. So even if you sent me something, it could just never appear again. And like I said, I don't like giving my address around because I imagine there can be some people who are very, you know, want to order pizzas to my house at a minimum, if not try and, you know, like egg it or throw a brick through the window or whatever else. Yeah, that's absolutely stupid, Jonathan. But I reckon what you could do is buy full rain clothes, so buy some fishing waders made of rubber, get a good thick raincoat, and then what you want to do is get some sort of 3M full face mask, which I reckon you'd still be able to get from hardware stores because it's like a trade good. It's, you know, for people spray painting and stuff like that. then you'd still be able to kind of rig up NBC gear. Cool, I'll give you a shout if I do, but like saying, because I don't have a PO box at the moment, I kind of worry about handing out my address. Yeah, I've got Gary's mod. Let's see ya. Right, it's 35 minutes, so another 25 minutes to go. As long as they're decently thick, like not really, really thin, they would offer protection, yes. I mean, even the really thin ones would offer some protection, but it's just, that's like the reason latex surgical gloves don't offer any real protection, because lots of people think they do, but they don't. Not with chemical weapons, at least, because things like mustard gas and lewisite can get through them so quickly that they're not any use. I like zombie survival on Gary's mod, and Trouble in Terrorist Town, which used to be called Serial Killer, if you go back a really long time, because I used to play that from its original conception. Yeah, if I could leave the UK I would, but sadly it's not that easy, because lots of people seem to think you can just say I want to be an American now and then you get US citizenship or something like that, which really isn't the case. But I'd rather try and stay and fight and change my country and improve it rather than just running away. But I suppose if it gets to the point where you have to become a literal refugee, then you would have to run away. So a shotgun is a machine gun and a rocket launcher. That's crazy. Speaking of stupid laws, somebody was saying in one of my chats the other day that under UK rules, because we have Section 1, Section 2 and Section 5 firearms, Section 1 firearms is like rifles and things like that. Section 2 is shotguns, so Section 2 licenses are easier to get than Section 1. And Section 5 are not given to people under normal circumstances. Regardless, things like pepper spray and tasers are in Section 5. I think it might have been Richard Smith that said this. So if you illegally had a pistol on you, or something like that, or a rifle, you'd get less of a jail sentence for having that than you would for pepper spray, because that's how weird the UK law is. Yeah, I joined UKIP a few days ago, but I won't get my card for quite a while because of how many party membership things they're getting coming through. There might be 3 and 4 sections, I don't know, but Section 1, 2 and 5 are the like really common ones for them to class things as. I've not heard of toxic mosquitoes, but I guess there are mosquitoes that could carry disease and infect you, so that's not good. Yeah, I mean, I hate cities personally. That's not to say every city's bad, but most cities I've been in, I think the countryside and rural places are much nicer, like little towns and villages. Cool. You say that every time, Tachanka. It's a bit like, no one expects the Spanish Inquisition. Yeah, it's like I've said that to quite a few people, that if you're visiting the UK, don't go to London or any of the big cities, but quite a few of the coastal places are very nice. A lot of the castles are very interesting to visit. Well, we have a National Rifle Association in the UK, but they're nowhere like they're not as, you know, influential as the American one at all. I think UKIP actually does have in one of their policies that they want to, at least at one point, I think they did have the things like right to carry a handgun for self-defense. I don't know if that's still in their policies, but I think they did have that at one point. But yeah, basically by voting for parties that support more individual rights, not big government rights, is the only way you're likely to get, you know, guns reintroduced. Yeah, you can even get guns and ammo in Walmart, can't you? Right, thanks, Carmen. Yeah, like I said, there's lots of things where on Laws Dragon have been done on knee-jerk sort of reactions to things. So basically, you know, it's stupid where you can have something that's less serious than something else, but because a politician tried to get brownie points by banning it, you know, get people to vote for them by banning it. That's why we have lots of stupid bits where the laws just do not make sense. Like how, you know, pistols are totally banned, but actually you can get muzzle-loading black powder pistols. I don't actually know what the Hughes Amendment is, mate, because obviously, as I'm not in America, I don't really closely follow US gun law. Yeah, and I bet all the versions of those they're carrying are really cheap, nasty versions. Like, I don't think any of them would have any of the really nice, like, Viking axe reproductions. They'd just be, like, crappy little hatchets, wouldn't they? MP4B, if I could choose that, but if not PBF. Because PBF's filters are bigger, so they probably last longer. But the thing is, because of black powder pistols, you could get things like, you know, the Colt 1851 Navy and a lot of the American Civil War percussion cap black powder revolvers. So, here's the thing, like, I'm sure this isn't going to happen, but in theory, somebody could buy loads of black powder revolvers, load them all up, and then do like a Blackbeard style thing, or, you know, US Civil War thing, where they've got loads of pistols tied to them. And then, you know, they could shoot loads and loads of people in theory. Not that they're going to do that. But, you know, that's the thing. But that's apparently fine as the law sees it. But, you know, you couldn't have a single-shot pistol thing allowed. That's totally banned now. Yeah, exactly. I live in a countryside type place. We've only got 2 local police for the entire area, and that's bad because I'm near a police HQ. But, you know, like, this is the thing I've said, is, like, I don't break the law, but if I wanted to carry any knife on me whatsoever, I could do it with impunity, because as long as I don't wave it about, nobody would ever know, and there wouldn't be any police to respond. This is a stupid thing. Yeah, like I said, Richard Smith, that is just totally stupid. Okay, so it was like the machine gun ban thing, was it? Was that Clinton who passed that? Right, I've probably missed a load of comments now where I was looking at all those. I think it's because every time Theresa May fucks something up, they have to blame the Russians for something over her government falling apart, because everybody hates each other in that government and they can't pass policy. Well, not effective policy, anyway. Yeah, imagine, Shackleton, if somebody was to do like some sort of, you know, like truck attack style thing with a tank. How would they stop that person? You know, not that I don't think that's going to happen, not that I want to, you know, try and give somebody ideas, but it's kind of ludicrous, isn't it, that you could have something that you can actually potentially do a lot more damage with, and that's okay. I mean, I know the thing is, if you were to buy a tank, that would cost a shitload of money, so it's probably actually much harder to use something like that for nefarious purposes. It's the same reason, simply, you know, why I think a lot of the expensive knives and stuff are never used in crime, and it's always like really shitty kitchen knives that are used for it. The rigger boots I've got at the moment are pretty good, but I don't know what brand they are. I just bought ones on eBay that are in my size and new. Yeah, I would have had a video go live. I might stop the stream in a minute then, so people can watch that, so it doesn't mess with my statistics. I'll go for a few more minutes though. Yeah, I completely forgot about that. I didn't just upload it, they're scheduled. I normally work a week in advance of videos, so that way if I have a day where I'm ill or I'm out doing something, it doesn't matter if I've missed a video. So they automatically, like, when I make a video I upload it and then I set the time it goes live, so it's all automated. It means, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to get them to go live at exactly 5 o'clock. I'd have to upload them and unlist them and then try and make them public at the right time. PG1 probably, but that's a tough one. Even out of GP5, I wouldn't really mind, but I'd need like FP5 filters for either. That's not bad, is it? 15 grand for what? Was that like a T54 or something, or a T72? Saying that, I did look on the MOD. At one point you could buy Humber Pigs on the MOD's thing and you could get them really cheap. When I say really cheap, I mean a few grand. Yeah, I've seen on the MOD sales stuff before that there's sometimes APCs between 10 and 20 grand depending on the condition and what model they are. Yeah, but we're not even on about using a cannon. It's like somebody on a rampage of a tank could do a lot of damage, seeing as you can just plough straight through cars and buildings with a heavy tank. Yeah, I might do more parody videos. People love those. I've got a video. I think it's the one that goes live tomorrow. Let me check. It's not actually a parody one, but the state of our laws mean it is a parody video. Yeah, it's tomorrow's video. The one that goes on July the 30th at 5 PM. That is, you'll like that. It's good and bad knives according to the government. So if it's a giant kitchen knife, it's a good knife. If it's a tiny little utility knife, it's bad. Yes, except somebody can armour up any pretty much any vehicle, can't they? That's the thing. Well, not really, because the thing is, if you have the same gun in automatic and semi-automatic, let's say somebody completely mag dumps, if you had a full automatic AR, that's going to be over 600 rounds a minute, isn't it, rate of fire? So if somebody pulls the trigger, their mag's empty. That's basically it. They're also going to have a harder time controlling it and shooting accurately, where if somebody's shooting a semi-automatic rifle, I think they can potentially do more damage because they're actually aiming and shooting it, not just spraying it and missing most of the shots. You've got one of the big Spetsnaz helmets to Chanka, I don't know the exact name of it. But this is the thing, is if you're allowed the same guns, just one's semi-auto, not full auto, with the same magazine sizes and everything else, I think you could just do equal damage with either of them, to be honest, in my opinion. Sadly, I've not seen that. I've seen people who say you could stuff a 40mm filter into one of those masks, but I've never seen, you know, any people really try it. And the problem is you've still got the bulky cheek sections. What I'd really like is a PBF without the cheeks and just a 40mm mount on each side, because then that would be the best Soviet mask ever. I'm not saying AR should be banned, I'm just sort of saying that's my point, that if somebody is a good shot with a rifle, they're far more dangerous than some, you know, like loser shooter who just puts it on fully auto and sprays everywhere. Yeah, but if you spray into a crowd, you're probably only going to hit a couple of people, aren't you? You're probably going to shoot several people a few times. Because you see, military rifles, which are fully automatic, their rate of fire is so high, you will dump your entire magazine in literally a second. It's not like a video game where it goes do-do-do-do-do-do-do. If you watch videos of people shooting fully automatic rifles, it's like, pff, your mag's empty. Because lots of them, you know, will dump over 10 rounds a second out the rifle. Yeah, lots of nations have just taken the rifles back to semi-auto or burst, haven't they? Because you just can't accurately hit anything with automatic fire. Unless it's a machine gun, I guess, on a bipod or a tripod. Sorry, Mr. Russian, I can't understand your writing. Yeah, Armalite rifle. But lots of people go, you know, the AR-15, it's the assault rifle 15. Because even though there's older Armalite rifles, which are like bolt action, aren't there? Which are still ARs. But the reason I say that is because, you know, when people think of the M16, like I'm saying, if we consider the M16 to the AR-15, you know, the AR being like the semi-automatic, basically just variant of it. Even though I think the AR-15 came before the M16, didn't it? Because the M16 was like the military version of it. But anyway, we're going off topic with that. But the point still is, you know, that if the it's more down to the shooter's skill if they're going to cause a lot of damage, rather than the capability of the gun to an extent. Oh, that's cool. OT64 Scott. Was that the old Polish one? Is that the one with like the weird little turret in the corner? Yeah, that is the one I'm thinking of. You could get that for less than the Ford Focus. Bloody hell. I really like the old BTR 152. Well, also, when they have somebody threatening to shoot up several schools, like lots of them are done, they should actually get them at that stage. They shouldn't let them do it and then go, oh yeah, yeah, all the warning signs were there and we just ignored them, but now we need to put more restrictions on guns. When you say shock absorbers, do you mean the bit at the back? So the back blast, like the back blast pack. Yeah, but lots of nations call their civilian gas masks things literally like that. Like British civilian respirator. I think the C7 was literally Civilian 7, because it was the 7th model, even though I think a lot were prototypes that never materialised. Alright, I'm going to finish the stream in a moment anyway. I think I'm being PM'd by people now. I stream generally at least once a week, sometimes 2 times a week. I try and spread it out, so like say I did a stream today being Sunday, I probably wouldn't stream again to about Wednesday or Thursday. But the time really varies, because often it's just when am I going to be free to do a stream when nobody's going to interrupt me. Because the problem is quite often, because obviously I don't live alone, you can't do streams at certain times because people constantly want to come in and try and talk to me. Centurion for 55 grand would be nice, but the problem you always think of is how much is it going to cost to keep that tank running. Like, imagine if when something breaks, it's going to be very expensive repair jobs on lots of those. I didn't mute you. Although I think you are trying to cause problems, aren't you, Tachenka, a load of the times you are on these streams, so don't start it or you will have to go if you try and start arguments with people and make a fuss. I'd rather have an armoured fighting vehicle than a Ford Mondeo, to be quite honest. But I mean, that's kind of a great thing, isn't it? If you could buy your all-terrain APC for less money than like an actual 4x4, imagine that. No, I can't afford to live alone. BTL 70 for 14 grand. Fucking hell. You're making me want one, but I love my Dacia. But yeah, for 4 grand more than my Sandero, basically, I could have got a BTR. Well, aren't they multi-fuel engines? So I know technically you get done for it, but couldn't you put the cheapest possible crap in the engine? It'd make horrible emissions, but I'm pretty sure they'd be multi-fuel engines. Because they used to do people because of, you know, stupid tax rules. Where they used to do people for getting their Land Rovers multi-fuel engines or whatever, and like the diesel ones, but rather than putting in regular diesel, they put in red diesel, because I think that's the boat version of diesel, but it's the exact same stuff, but it's taxed much cheaper. So they would literally do you, because you know how petty governments are with their taxes, because you're driving the exact same car outputting the same emissions, but you use the cheaper kind of fuel because you were clever. No, you're getting done for that. For the most part nylon, like carriers and everything like that, because it's generally nylon is stronger. But it depends really on the quality of the individual piece, because you can get stuff that's crap or good. out of any material really. No, just family, because housing prices where I am, a 1-bedroom house would be over 300 grand where I live in the UK. Next to London, it's one of the most expensive places for housing, so I have no hope of moving out unless a load of friends decide they want to rent somewhere together in another completely different part of the UK with cheaper houses. So at the moment I just pay rent rather than trying to move out, because I just could not afford to. Even if I was working 40 hours a week, I would not be earning enough. The rate the house price goes up every year in the UK is less than your wages would go up every year. Yeah, Avon M53 looks good, but like I said, I can't afford one, and I can't really say much about a mask until I own it and take a look at it myself. Because on paper the GSR is meant to be a brilliant mask, as we all know it's not. Anyway, so yep, I'm gonna head off now, because like I said, a video went live and people have been trying to get hold of me. So I'm gonna go and sort that stuff out. Hope you've enjoyed the stream. This has been a really good stream because nobody's been stupid in it. So yeah, thank you for that. That's always pleasant when I get to do a stream and nobody starts doing illegal stuff or you know, taking a joke too far or trying to wind somebody else up. Right, so see you everybody. Thanks for watching, and stay safe. And then I'll probably next do a stream. Maybe about Wednesday in the week. We'll have to see. Totally depends.